My first thing that I am going to bring this week is, and this is a timely thing, and I haven't really done something like this before, but it's the SNES Classic, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic.
Here we go.
Here we go. Strap in, folks. First things first, is dang cute. This little guy is so tiny, so little, and I like it so much. We also have the NES Classic. We were lucky enough to have one bestowed upon us by the gods, which was the only way that you could get an NES Classic. You had to climb, the mountain, bring the sacrifice, and then Reggie Fils-Aimé, the Nintendo man, came and gave it to you.
The Nintendo man?
There's a big man. Oh, this is wonderful. Shit, I did it again. There's a man who is like the main sort of face of Nintendo right now, and his name is Reggie Fils-Aimé, and he used to be the king of Pizza Hut. And he invented
I don't know what that means either.
He was like the corporate marketing chief,
like the
spokesman for Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And legend has it that it was his idea to do the Bigfoot pizza, the 15-foot pizza,
okay.
and that's funny because he's an 8.5 yard tall man.
Oh, really? Okay.
And when I say yard, I'm not using the measurement. I'm talking about a yard in front of your house. Take 8 blocks worth of... Anyway. The SNES Classic, if you do not know, it is a sort of little box that you just plug right into your TV, and it is a compilation of 21 Super Nintendo games. There's some really great ones on there. And I have a few reasons why I wanted to talk about it. First of all, I wanted to try talking about something sort of actively happening in our lives right now. Because we just got this last Friday is when it came out. But also because the Super Nintendo it was sort of my first console that I felt ownership of. I was born in 87, and that's when the original Nintendo, the NES, was out, and that was in my house when I was born. And so I grew up playing that a bit, but I was 0 years old. So it wasn't I came out hand me the controller, hand me the zapper, let's get some fucking ducks. But the original Super Nintendo came to North America in 1991 when I was 4 years old, and that was oh, okay, that's what this is, and now I'm going to get into it. So that was really my first touchstone with video games, which I have loved my entire life. And I don't think you could do any better for having the Super Nintendo be that console in your life, because there were a lot of really great games. Nintendo made a ton of really great games for the console. Games like all the Mario games and Zelda and Super Metroid and Pilot Wings and a bunch of really great games. But there was a developer called Squaresoft, which is now known as Square Enix, which is a Japanese developer that made all of these role-playing games. And those are those were the games that I spent my entire childhood playing. Yeah,
this is kind of fascinating to me because I grew up in a Sega household. Very deliberately so. I told Griffin, my dad...
I love this story, by the way.
My dad, who reads reviews of everything before he purchases.
Big Consumer Reports fan.
Yes. He had heard that the graphics on the Sega Genesis were better.
Got duped.
So that is what we had. So when Griffin has shown me these games that he loves so much, I just think how'd you get into this? It's just little blocks, little squares.
Oh, how dare you? We could get into
which I guess is what Minecraft is, which is a
and it's also what a lot of the Sega Genesis games were. Rachel and I had this big heated debate, and I realized oh man, elementary school, this is literally all we talked about. The faction war between Mario and Sonic and the different sort of universes that they represented. This was all that we talked about. Anyway, this is a huge tangent, but Squaresoft's games were hugely influential for me. And I have countless anecdotes because it was how I did community theater growing up, so that was my main a capital H hobby, but my free time I spent playing video games, and most of those were Squaresoft games. So Final Fantasy 2, which was actually the fourth Final Fantasy game that came out, but only the second one that came to the States. It was called 2. I played that game when I was probably 6 years old and learned how to read really well because of it. there was a game that came out called Chrono Trigger, which I think is one of the best games of all time. I got for Christmas, and I can remember like that was the best Christmas of all time. There was a home video that was like hugely embarrassing because I had like a fucking fit when I opened up the box and there was Chrono Trigger. I was so excited for it. One of my favorite stories is me and my dad used to play this game Secret of Mana, which is actually on the SNES Classic. It's one of my favorite games of all time. You've actually been watching me play it.
Yeah.
Which is like a role-playing game with some action elements, and you can play with two people at a time. And we would play that together. And so me and my dad would always play Secret of Mana, and it was like a really cool, like, I never played sports, and so me and dad didn't play sports together, and so like this was the thing that we did together, and it was really great. And I remember distinctly coming home from school one day and didn't know where dad was, and so I went up in the attic, which is where the Super Nintendo was at the time, and I caught him playing Secret of Evermore, which was the sequel to the game that he had gone to the store and bought for himself so that he could play it. It wasn't like a birthday gift or Christmas gift, which was like our only means of acquiring new video games. We'd have to wait for Christmas and be like, oh, hell yeah, new video game time. Dad like went to the store because he wanted to like get this game and keep playing it. And so we played that together too. Like, that one is unfortunately not on the box. So like, that is like sort of the space that the Super Nintendo filled in my life, and the SNES Classic has like a bunch of my favorite games from that era. It's real cute and real little, and I just love the idea of like having this little self-contained like treasure chest of nostalgia. And like the NES Classic had that too, but again, like those games are great and important, but they didn't like mean as much to me because they weren't like the games that I really was born into.
That's what's so smart about re-releasing these consoles is all the games are already built in, so it's not like people are like having to reinvest in all these cartridges again.
Yeah, because I, as you can tell by looking literally into my closet right now, like I have a lot of these games. They're expensive as fuck. There's a game on here, Final Fantasy 3, which was Final Fantasy 6 in Japan. One of the best games ever made. And if you wanted to find a cartridge of it, like an actual SNES cartridge of it, it'd probably run you about $80, which is the price of the SNES Classic. I just love the idea of having this thing that is full of these little memory capsules. And I'm not saying that to be like poetic, like that is the space that it fills for me, like more than movies or books or any TV ever. Like this is the thing that creates nostalgia inside of me because it is the thing that I spent so much of my time playing. So the idea of having a little library of that stuff that also like I'm constantly thinking about, like when Henry's older, like I can show him like these are the games that I grew up playing. Like I think that's really cool and it gets me so excited. So that's the SNES Classic. It's kind of hard to find, which is a little bit of a bummer. It's a little bit easier to find than the NES Classic. You don't have to climb the mountain with the sacrifice. Are they going to
be releasing more?
I think that's the plan. They're going to try to do better with their inventory. The NES Classic, they just did not make enough of them, and then they stopped making it.
Yeah.
So it's like this, I guess, huge collector's item. But yeah, we have some. I have a list of the games here, but I talked about enough of them, I think. Super Mario RPG is a good one. It's on there too. I'm excited to dip in.
And that Donkey Kong game.
Donkey Kong Country is very good. Rachel and I played Kirby's Dream Course, which I'd never played before, but it's like a competitive Kirby-based like mini golf game. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, I had a good time with that.
I enjoyed playing that with you because like I'd never played it before.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I, as I mentioned before, have not played a lot of these games before, and it is not a lot of fun for me to play games with Griffin because he has logged so many hours into so many of them that the deficit is too great.
Yeah, in order to find a game that Rachel and I can really get into together, it needs to not have that factor in it, which is like why we really enjoyed the Telltale games, the Telltale Walking Dead games we got really into.
Especially with a 2-player game where you take turns playing. Like Griffin and I tried to play some Mario together.
Yeah, Super Mario World.
And I would play for, 3 minutes, and then I would die, and then it would go back to him. And I was like, well, this is not.
Yeah, it's not really designed for that. There's not a ton of games on there that are good for that, except really Secret of Mana. It's like great. It's just like you can play together and explore together and cast spells and shit. I love it. We should play that together. Will you please? With me? Yeah.
I'll be your father in this scenario.
Well,